Hey guys, Useless here, and I am frustrated by The Boys Season 2. Now, I'm not talking about the show itself. I actually think the show itself is pretty good. I still find the morally gray characters of The Boys Season 1 just as fascinating. I still think the show has excellent production value, and there are definitely still moments that leave my jaw hanging open, just wondering how this is a show on television, or I guess not television, streaming. I don't know how you would describe it. Sure, there's a story thread I may find meandering, but my problem with the show this season stems much more from the way it's being released as opposed to the show itself. Of course, I'm talking about the weekly release schedule. Now, listen, I totally get why they're doing it this way. It just makes sense. I mean, think about it. Why do streaming services make original programming? It's not like they make money off of these original movies and TV shows up front. They make original programming in order to entice you into subscribing to their service. Or if you're already subscribed, to keep your subscription. So it simply makes sense to stagger episodes of original series to a week by week basis. So, say you have an 8 episode season. If people want to catch each episode of that series, then they're gonna have to be subscribed for 2 months. And not only are people who would already be interested in that show being forced to subscribe for 2 months, but the word of mouth for that show is also going to continue for 2 months. I mean, just look at Stranger Things Season 3 versus The Mandalorian. Sure, everybody loved Stranger Things Season 3, or, I mean, at the very least, it was really popular and everyone was talking about it, but people were really only talking about it for like a week, maybe. After that, they just kind of moved on and nobody really talked about it after that. The Mandalorian, on the other hand, had people talking about it for nearly 2 months. For nearly 2 months, you couldn't get on Twitter without seeing Baby Yoda in some kind of meme. I guarantee you that there's a good amount of people who otherwise would have ignored the show, but because it was just everywhere, Baby Yoda was everywhere, they jumped on board because of FOMO, which, if you don't know, is fear of missing out. So, getting back to the boys, I do get it. It simply makes sense from a business perspective. From a viewer's perspective, however, I just find myself being unsatisfied with watching this second season. I felt like this season has been moving really slowly, and I honestly do feel like it's really just because I can't binge it. The first season was probably just as slow, but the difference is that I didn't have to wait a week in between episodes. I could just move on to the next one. And I feel like these streaming shows are made with that in mind. A lot of these streaming shows feel like really long movies, and that's a really cool experience when you're able to binge it. But when you're given that really long movie in bits and pieces over a really long period of time, at least in the boys' case, end up feeling unsatisfied at the end of some episodes. Like, I finish some of these episodes wanting to see more. I want to see where these characters are going. And not in a good way where they've told a good self-contained story in an episode, but I still want to see where the story goes from here. It's like the story is getting interesting and then it just ends and it's like come back later for the next part. And like I said before, it's just a little frustrating to watch. And look at The Mandalorian again. Every episode of The Mandalorian was its own self contained story. I felt like satisfied at the end of every episode. You know, they saved the village in this episode. They, I don't know, dealt with like the criminals and the ship in that other episode. There was a point to every episode, leaving you interested in what would come next. That show was clearly made with a week to week release schedule in mind. It feels like The Boys Season 2 was made to be binged And then afterwards, Amazon made the decision to have it be released weekly. Now, you might say to me, well, why don't you just wait for the episodes to be released, man? Why are you getting so uptight about this, man? Just wait for all the episodes to be released and watch them in a binging manner, man. Why don't you just do that, man? And you would be right. I could do that. But quite frankly, I don't have the fortitude. I have FOMO. I want to be a part of the conversation, okay? So even though I may sit here and maul about it, the truth is that we live under the boot of Amazon, and I'm still going to participate in this cycle that only benefits them. So yeah, I don't know. I guess the real villain here is capitalism, I guess. But I don't know. Let me know what you think. Do you like this season so far? Like, are you digging the week to week release schedule? I know that like one of the problems with binging is that kind of like FOMO, you're kind of pressured into binging an entire season in like a few days, which that can also be problematic. So I don't know. Maybe you think the week to week release schedule is refreshing. But yeah, just let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.